Welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. And the reason why we're never imitated, never duplicated, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the fact that a lot of people, a lot of media just won't talk about the things that we talk about. And tonight is going to be no different. You know, what we're going to talk about on this show is court appointed attorneys, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, most newspapers, I don't care if they're daily, weekly, bi weekly, or monthly, won't touch this subject. Most electronic media, whether that be television, radio, will not touch this topic. But tonight we're going to talk about it. And one of the things I might mention here is I am frequently contacted by people who've had or are having situations with court appointed attorneys, and they are not happy most of the time. And there's a good reason for that. You see, most of the time, if you really cannot afford to hire your own attorney, a court appointed attorney is not going to be very much help to you. And let me tell you why. It's not necessarily that they're not good attorneys, but I think that what happens in most cases, now there are exceptions to the rule, but in most cases, when you have a court appointed attorney, that means the taxpayer is paying for that, your defense. And what happens is, more than likely, you will probably get a good defense attorney. But what you won't get is a good defense. That's not their MO. You see, the public defenders, as they're often called, or court appointed attorneys, usually don't make the kind of money defending public offenders as they do when they are involving themselves or engaging in their personal, uh, private uh, defenses. In other words, they like to make money. And so here's what happens, and this is in particular with our youth. You know, I really feel sorry when I see a juvenile involved in a court appointed attorney situation or a public defender, because, like I said, you're not going to get any defense. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. Their MO, and it doesn't really make any difference if it's in the juvenile justice system or if it's in the adult justice system. When you have a court appointed attorney, in most cases, or a public defender, in most cases, their MO is to get you to plea bargain. Okay? That's basically how they operate. They don't feel they're making enough money to spend their time investigating your case. Now, what does an investigation do? An investigation represents a client to the best of their abilities to find that client innocent of the charges. Now, that's what they do if you pay them $300 or $400 an hour, okay? But at the wages that they're receiving from the government, and in this particular case, we're talking about state government or local government, county government, city government, they don't get paid enough money to spend time advocating for your innocence. So what do they do instead? What they do is come in and look at your situation, look at your background, look at the charges against you, and then figure out a way, the quickest way, that they can find a plea bargain agreement that they can set up with the prosecutor and the judge. And that's the way it works. So your case never receives a proper, adequate defense because that's not what they're interested in. They're not interested in investing a lot of time investigating your case, trying to find ways and evidence that would lead to your innocence. They don't have time for that. They've got to, and let me just tell you how it's labeled, not even by me, by people that deal with this on a daily basis. And here's what they will tell you. Although Kansas has admirably ensured that young people nearly always have a defense attorney by their side during juvenile court proceedings, stakeholder interviews and court observations conducted for this assessment revealed that all too often those offenders are present in name only. Okay? As one assessment team member noted after completing observations, the offenders' practices were often meet the client, plead the client, and meet the next client. Okay? And that's what they do, ladies and gentlemen. So if you go into a courtroom and you are asked, can you afford to provide your own defense or your own attorney, and you say no, ladies and gentlemen, you've lost 3/4 of the battle if you're innocent. You've lost 3/4 because all they're going to do is find a way to put together a plea agreement. In other words, get you to plead guilty to something. And they will tell you that if you plead guilty to this, you'll get less time, okay, than you would if you don't plead guilty. Well, that makes sense. But the whole thing you want a defense attorney for is to defend you against the charges and to investigate and find evidence to show your innocence. You don't really need an attorney to put you in jail because that's what you're going to be doing when you take a plea bargain. You're pleading guilty to something. You're not pleading innocent, you're pleading guilty to something, which is going to lead to jail time for you. And like I said, oftentimes the juveniles are railroaded under this system that we have. And who's to blame for that? Well, let me tell you. In my opinion, it is the government of this state, and it's not the same way in most states, the governor and the legislators. Now, why do I say that? Because the legislators nor the governors will advocate for enough money to properly pay for the services of a good defense attorney. And what I mean by that is pay enough money for that attorney to be willing to investigate your case, not just look for a plea bargain agreement. But that's what they do in most cases. The same thing holds true for adult justice system. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what happens is that when you have the services of a court-appointed attorney, more times than not, and I would say probably 95% of the time, it's going to lead to limited or no justice at all. Yes, you've got a defense attorney, but he's offering you no defense. He's offering you his services to get you in and out of that process as quick as he possibly can so that he can move on to the next client, or that he can go back to his private services where he can make more money defending somebody else who's not on the taxpayer's dime. Now that's their MO, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that, but that's the way it is. Now, I remember a recent caller that I had, a person contacted me and talked about their court-appointed attorney was trying to get them to enter a plea bargain, and if not that, then actually telling them to commit perjury and lie and lay the blame for their charges on another or some of the other defendants in the case. And my advice to that person was, the first thing you need to do is you need to go before that judge and tell the judge you want to replace this court-appointed attorney. And if the judge asks you why, you tell him. Because this court-appointed attorney is asking me to do things that would land me in jail on a perjury charge, or it would land me in jail because once another attorney cross-examines me and finds that I have no documentation for the lying statements that I made, okay, and I don't have enough knowledge to understand what you're talking about, I'm going to land in jail because I've lied. I've committed perjury. So what do you need a defense attorney for that is willingly going to put you in jail, and he knows it? As a matter of fact, if you have that kind of a situation, you need to bring it to the attention of the judge, because a defense attorney that will try to get you to commit perjury, which he knows is going to land you in jail, should be disbarred. But you see, what happens is too many people don't know enough about the law to understand when a defense attorney is misleading you and leading you down the path of self-destruction. But that's exactly what's happened. So my advice is, if you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever, try your best to keep them out of the legal system. Because the legal system, and in particular, the juvenile justice system, is not set up. It is not set up for poor people. And I'm talking about poor Blacks, poor Hispanics, poor whites. I don't care what, as long as you're poor and you cannot afford to hire your own attorney, this system is not meant for you, unless you want your loved ones to be incarcerated for an extended period of time. But as far as finding their innocence, as far as advocating for their innocence, as far as investigating to find enough and sufficient evidence to prove their innocence, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And this is, I'm telling you, every now and then you will find a rare occasion where a court-appointed attorney will take it upon himself to look out for your best interest, but it's a rarity. Now, most of you that have been through this process, you know what I'm talking about. People that have contacted me that have gone through or are presently going through this know what I'm talking about. A court-appointed attorney is not a good thing. It's not going to lead to the desired results that you're looking for. You think because I've got a good defense attorney that the state is paying for, and he's going to be looking out for my best interest, or my child's best interest, or my grandchild's best interest, you are going to be greatly, greatly disappointed. You're going to think negatively about attorneys, you will soon realize that you have become another victim of the injustice that is afforded poor people who don't have the money to pay. Now, on top of that, you'll probably be the victim of several fines and fees that will be associated with this process. And those fees, believe me, can run into the thousands of dollars. And if you cannot afford to pay for your own defense, you certainly cannot afford to pay these fees that they're going to levy upon you. But that's part of the process. And like I said, politicians know this, the judges know this, the legislators know this, and the government knows this, the governor. But they won't do anything to change it. You see, ladies and gentlemen, let me just explain one thing to you. There was a study that was done in I believe it was 2019, by a Washington, D.C. based consulting firm who deals with nothing other than these types of defenses and this type of justice system that entails juveniles for the most part, but they also advocate the same thing happens in adult situations. Adult justice system is basically no better than the juvenile justice system. You can just as easily get railroaded if you're involved in the adult justice system with no money and lack of ability to pay. You will be railroaded just as fast, if not faster, than the juveniles. But the juveniles don't know any better. The juveniles, many of them are victims of the school to prison pipeline. And many of those juveniles are guilty of nothing. But yet they will be led through a process of pleading guilty to something to satisfy the defense attorney, the court-appointed defense attorney, who, like I said, is offering you no defense. He's strictly offering you a plea bargain. That gets him off your case the fastest way possible. And he moves on to the next one. So this program, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot express this enough. This program, I don't do entertainment shows, all right? I do shows that are informative and educational for you. You see, one of the things what happens, folks, is oftentimes you get railroaded, you get misused, you're disrespected for lack of knowledge. And this is more true in the justice system than it is anywhere else. So that is why I'm doing this show today. Hopefully that I can inform and educate you people about what to get into and what not to get into if it's at all possible. Now, I certainly understand that there's some people who simply have to use the services of a court-appointed attorney or a public defender. I understand that. But I'm saying to you, I want you to know what you're getting yourself into so you won't be disappointed, so you won't be let down. Because that is what happens to people who cannot afford to pay for their own legal defense. And it happens each and every day in our system. Now, the legislators will not provide the proper compensation for these court-appointed attorneys to feel it adequate for them to investigate your case and advocate for your innocence. And until that happens under your state legislature, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to continue to be a problem for you. So this needs to be brought to the attention of the state legislators and the governor to allocate more money in the areas of public defenders and court-appointed attorneys so that you can get a just, adequate defense and not be railroaded. I hate to see it happen to you, but it happens every day. I hate to see it happen to our young men and young women. And I'm talking about preteens and teens, juveniles. They get railroaded. And it only happens to poor people of all colors, of all stripes. So again, I'm going to tell you, if you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you have nieces, nephews, whatever, that are juveniles, you cannot preach enough to them to stay on the right path, because one misstep can mess you up for life. All because of an unjust legal system in this country. Okay? And as I want to tell you, as long as the majority of those people who are being railroaded are Black and brown and poor people, we're going to have this type of injustice system on our hands. So the best thing to do is to do everything you can. You cannot let a day go by that you don't preach and teach to your juveniles. Stay out of trouble. Stay out of trouble. Walk a straight and narrow path. Be careful who you run around with. Don't get yourself involved with the wrong crowd. Stay in school. Get an education. Learn something. It's a rough, tough road on the other side if you're not willing to listen and learn. Okay? Now, like I said, what I'm telling you, you're not going to hear from any other media. They're not going to talk about this. The court system don't want them to talk about this. The judges don't want them to talk about this. They don't want you to know what the MO is. They want you to think you're getting a fair justice system. And you're getting everything but that. So, hey, all I can do is tell you, like I say though, I can take a horse to water, but I cannot make him drink. And I'm telling you folks, and this just doesn't go for juveniles. This goes for your adult. If you have sons and daughters and grandchildren, husbands, wives, whatever, if you cannot afford a legal representation on your own, you best stay out of trouble. Because when that judge says, can you afford an attorney? And you say, no, I cannot, Your Honor. And they say, well, I will appoint one for you. That's bad news, okay? Too many people are hearing that news on a regular basis. Too many people are contacting me after the fact. After the fact. And I have to give them the bad news that I'm giving you all. So stay out of trouble. If you get in trouble, be prepared to hire your own legal defense unless you're prepared to go to jail. All right? Okay. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And that's my show for tonight. I'm out.